Oh, I love who's here today. Fantastic. Oh my goodness, look at these beauties. Training Tuesday, Mastery Practitioners in the house. Love it. Whoop, whoop. Hey, Danielle, so good to see you. You can't get enough of me, huh? It's kind of been like an everyday thing. Same with Lori. I'm just as attached to you guys as you are to me.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Welcome. Oh my goodness. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to Training Tuesday, Tidbit Tuesday, as Lori likes to call it, for practitioners. We're here to just chat about industry speak and some anatomy in there too, my favorite topic. And we're here every Tuesday at noon Eastern doing the talk. And my intention for today is to talk about partnering, which is one of my favorite concepts actually. And it came up for me a few times over the weekend, not because we had an amazing retreat, but in addition to our amazing retreat. But let me just please talk about that. So I'm Gina Schatz, the developer of the Schatz method, and these lovely beings on the screen with me today are mastery practitioners. And we just had our in-person retreat over the weekend. I'm still kind of high from it. I'm still floating on a bubble. We had an amazing time. These practitioners are super badass. They are literally specialists in their field. We had a powwow for 3 solid days. It felt like 5 minutes in 5 years all at the same time because we covered so much ground, but it went super fast. We had some sunshine, we had some good conversations, we had some good food, but mostly we were up to really good stuff. So I just want to acknowledge both of you for your presentation and how you showed up in the weekend. I had a super blast. And we're going to continue our conversation because now that we were talking about partnering at the retreat, that's really not what our focus was. Our focus was more on our tools and the specialty that we offer as practitioners. But while we were there in the retreat, we were working with each other. So movement practitioners partnering with manual practitioners and getting different perspectives of what field work is like. I have been at many conferences and trainings along the way. You guys, some of you have heard about me being at the inaugural fascia conference, the International Fascia Conference. That was an amazing time where scientists who literally spend their days looking in a microscope brought their science and research to this forum, and practitioners were in the audience. Excuse the frog. Speaking of frogs, they used a frog to test fascia. I wonder if that was like my guilt for the frog work that they did, because I always loved and hated that they did that. Like grateful for the results, but kind of hated that they pinned a frog to figure out how long the fascia was held in place. But the point is that at this international fascia conference, as we were partnering researchers with practitioners, we could really help fill in the gaps because they don't really know how it works in the field. They could just say, well, data point says X, Y, Z. And we're like, got it. And when someone has this type of history and this type of condition that they're navigating, A plus B doesn't always equal C. Sometimes we got to jump through the alphabet a little bit. And the researchers were like, oh, okay, well, let's go back and figure out what that means and give you more data points on that. So it was another form of partnering that really like expanded our industry. And, not coincidentally, the world of fascia and the fascination with fascia and working with fascia as movement practitioners really started to expand then. Of course, because we had partnered in such a way that we all became more powerful. And there's other instances of partnering along the way too that have been just really instrumental in my work as a practitioner. So I wanted to talk today about not just partnering in a global sense, like international conferences, although I highly recommend them if you're interested, but more like down home partnering. And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because, again, because I have talked about this before, but the reason I want to talk about this again is because there is a opportunity for us to refer out pretty commonly, pretty regularly. And I am a fan of that when we're referring out of our lane. But there's also an opportunity for practitioners to refer out just because they're not confident about what they're doing, or they get a little spooked in the treatment setting. They're there by themselves. The client's case seems a little complicated. They tried 1 or 2 things. They got a little spooked because it didn't work. And they're like, oh, I must not be the one, and I'm going to refer out. And I would really like to stop that. I would really like to stop that from happening. So I want to pour into you today about that. And then there's the other side of the spectrum too, which doesn't happen as much, but there was an era, if you will, where it was happening a lot, where practitioners started really serving outside of their lane. And I don't know if that was a scarcity thing, like if I don't serve my clients with all the things that they'll ever need forever, that then they'll leave and I won't have the client, or if it was an arrogance, like I just know everything and I'm, I don't know which one it is, but neither of those really work. They don't work at all. So I want us to know, like, when do we refer out? When are we meant to partner with another practitioner, and when are we meant to refer out? And when are we meant to just like own the lane that we're in? Like, this is our lane. And I think that the conversation around referring out and having a vested interest in the goal of your client, especially when you're not the one to serve them, is really honorable, right? Like knowing when to refer out when you're not their person, when there will be no dollars exchanged for your vested interest in them leaving and going somewhere else, when you know that you tried everything that you could do, that I have experienced over and over again will absolutely come back in dividends. Absolutely. And that's really what came to me this weekend. There was a client that I had been supporting before our retreat. And, we'd been working together for quite some time and really troubleshooting and trying to figure out what was needed. And they were working with the allopathic medical world and the holistic medical world and checking in with me on all the points, which I recognized was like, I'm a trusted resource for them, right? And I was answering all those calls and talking with them readily about that. And I remember working with a business coach one time who said, "You don't give away your advice for free. That's ridiculous. You need to be a better businesswoman." So I get that. And I also am a huge advocate of us earning a really good living. In fact, last week's Training Tuesday was about that, like earn your worth, offer amazing value, and receive amazing value. So I'm not advocating that we work for free. That's not what this conversation is about. But staying connected with your clients while they're on the journey to find their final solution when it's not you is still being in service, and that will come back in dividends. In fact, this person that spoke to me just last week before the retreat, I had referred to another colleague of mine that has a specialty in something I don't do. And they got a lot closer to the answers. They got a lot of clarity. They got some relief while they were there. And of course, they called me at the end of that session to let me know how it went because I had referred them. And I was really moved by what they said. They said, you and this other practitioner you sent me to have such a vested interest in me getting better. And even that other practitioner thought that I might need to go somewhere else after that practitioner and I worked together a few times. And I just want to let you know that after this year-long struggle with the pain that I'm in, I finally feel like even when the two of you may not be the answer to the pain, that I feel fully supported that I will find the answer. And that is the kind of feedback that we want. That's the kind of reputation we want to build for ourselves. And that's not about working for free. So I'm not suggesting that you get on the phone with your clients and talk to them for hours a day when you could, those are billable hours. I'm just, 10 or 15 minutes, send them an email link, refer them to another practitioner that has a very good chance of filling in the gap that you couldn't, and then check in with them to see how they're doing or allow them to check back in with you. My experience in my career path is that I may not see that client again, and I may not, quote, earn dollars from working with them, but they'll send me 6 or 7 people they love and care about. And that's just how it comes back in dividends, right? So having a vested interest in the results for our clients, especially when you're not the one to provide it, is really the service act, the open-heartedness, the compassionate part. And again, watch your money type that you're not over-serving and not receiving. But there's a couple ways that we get to walk through, like, when do you refer out? When do you partner with another practitioner? And there's a couple places that we get to really be knowledgeable in order to know when to refer out so that we can create all this magic for someone else. And the first step, the very, very first step, is know your lane and own your lane, right? You get to be a specialist in what you do. You get to be a boss at your own modality. You get to know it inside and out. You get to have full confidence in your ability to create results, which means you get to be steeped in knowledge and skilled in your practice, implementing over and over again, checking back in with your colleagues or a mentor to make sure that you left no stone unturned, and then create a pattern of results where you know that this is how long it typically takes for me to work through this type of thing with a client. And there's, of course, some nuances client to client, but I've said this a lot, and I say it to my clients. If I don't resolve someone's initial complaint within the first 4 sessions, I know my modality is not the one that they need. I'm not their girl, is what I say to them. So they can come in with, an ankle injury or low back or whatever their chief complaint is. And as long as I stay focused on only resolving that and I don't squirrel into the rest of their body, I know that within about 4 sessions, we will dramatically see results and probably resolve it or get really super close to resolving it, which lets me know that if by the time someone comes the second session and they're 100% feeling the same thing they felt last time, and the way their body is presenting, their measurements, we do measurements in our method, their measurements are the same as well, I'm on high alert. Because now we're on session 2, we're halfway through what I know my track record is, something isn't right. Something isn't right. So I'm not just going to repeat session 1. Because at the start of session 2, they're back to where they started. So I know that I got to work something else out. And by the time session 3 comes around, there should be noticeable difference that not only I'm noticing, but that the client is noticing. And that's typically how it works for me. So you get to find out what that pattern is for you. How many sessions does it take? It shouldn't take months. We've talked about that before. If it takes months, your clients are going to lose patience and you're missing something, in my opinion, if you're there to resolve a problem. Now, I'm not talking about regular movement for maintenance and regular massage for maintenance. I'm not talking about maintenance type manual and movement practices. I'm talking about orthopedic corrections where they have a problem. There is a functional discrepancy and you're there to resolve it for them. If that's the work that you're up to, awesome, be a specialist. Get really specialized and know what your lane is and then own that lane. So that then you can tell, like, this isn't in my lane. I know this isn't in my lane. It doesn't smell like it, look like it, taste like it. Like, this is not my thing, right? It's not responding to the work that I do, the really excellent skilled work that I do. Okay, so that's number 1. Know your lane and own your lane. And also remember that your clients choose you for a reason. So even if they bring you something that's not in your lane, they bring you themselves because they know that you're going to support them in finding who's in their lane. And that's when the partnering comes in, right? So now you're like, all right, my modality wasn't the one for this person. My specialty wasn't the one that was the fix, but they chose me and they're still here on session 3, even though they haven't created any results. We haven't created any results together. They must think that I have something for them. Okay, what do I have for them? What else do I have? It's not in my toolbox. Where's my community? Where are my practitioners where's the other specialties that they might need? And in order to be able to identify another specialty, not only do we, I believe, step number 2, step number 2 maybe, I'm losing track of my numbers. The next step is that you get to know your anatomy inside and out. If you know how the body's designed and you know what it responds to, and you also have a specialty where you can get them back to the way they're designed, then you'll be able to read from the body what it's responding to or not responding to. But if we don't know anatomy and we don't know how the body functions, we're just as confused as the client. And then we're not really a person that they can partner with to get them to their next place. So you really get to know your anatomy and how the body's designed. And then it's next step, whatever number we're on. And then it's really step 3. Thank you, Lori. And then it's really important to spend some time observing and learning other modalities. We Google stuff all the time to look up, what is this? What is that? How do I know what this is? If that's the only thing that you can do is Google other modalities, go for it. What I share in, we have a course in our Mastery Academy called Partnering for a Pain-Free World. And one of the things that I recommend is that you go to other practitioners to do other modalities that you don't do and explore them, right? The worst that can happen is you get some good self-care in your own body, right? And the best that can happen is you really find a qualified practitioner that not only offers you some value, explains to you their specialty, because they're super deeply versed in what they do and the lane that they're in. And then you have someone in your community that you can then refer to, right? And so, like, again, this client that I was talking about last week, that's exactly what happened. I'm a specialist in my industry, and this other practitioner is a specialist in their industry. Let me just insert here. When we do specialty work, you do get to explain what you do, not only to your clients and your prospects, but also to your other colleagues. Because unless you're just doing a general umbrella, massage therapist, yoga teacher, if you're doing something specialized under that umbrella, you get to explain your specialty probably forever. And just like pull up your socks and like get it done, right? So I hear a lot from practitioners like, oh, nobody knows what I do. Right, because you have a specialty. And guess what? This other practitioner I referred to is a doctor, but they have a specialty that nobody understands because there's like 10 of them in the region in the United States where I live in. There's not that many of them. So you get to explain who the specialist is and why they would do it, or, why they would potentially have the answers for you. So you get to go into these other modalities, these other specialties, and learn a little bit about them. I wrote a blog about this several years ago about like, how do you know when you need chiropractor or physical therapy or acupuncture? And I wrote the blog because a lot of my clients weren't even sure. They're like, oh, I have this hip pain and maybe I should go to an acupuncturist. Okay, great. Well, why do you think you should go to an acupuncturist? Well, my neighbor did. Okay, well, that's awesome. And so that's vague. Like, what do you think acupuncture is going to do? Well, if they don't know what the modality is, they don't know what it's going to do. And then what ends up happening is that the clients start spinning, looking for anything that they think might work, but they don't have a real basis of how to choose what they're choosing. And so they end up burning out, which is no different than us keeping them in our care for 6 months burning out. They're just burning out all over the community that they're in. So if we're vested in the outcome of them having total relief, we want to interrupt them just practitioner hopping. We want to slow that. We want to narrow down their scope and speed up their results, slow down their dissemination into all possibilities, and actually help them make a discernment between the choices. And if we don't know the modalities, we can't have that conversation with them. So again, that's one of the reasons why I wrote this blog. And I want to start this part of the conversation by saying I am not here to bash any other practitioner, literally the opposite. I'm here for us to all understand all of our modalities so that we know what lane we're in and what lane to send a client in when they need some support. I have no negativity on any particular practitioner or modality. The passion that I have is around about doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing, especially overdone the wrong thing. Okay. So some of us have had this conversation before about chiropractic. Chiropractic by definition is high velocity, high impact. They are medically licensed to be able to do high velocity, high impact on joints where two bones meet. That's really important when there is a joint discrepancy or when the way the joint has experienced an injury makes all the connective tissue in that joint difficult to articulate and allow the joint to move. Okay. That's separate though from muscle work. So muscles are the ones that move bones. Bones don't move muscles. So if we have bones that are out of place, Rhonda says not completely. There are low force, no force styles of chiropractic. Yeah, exactly. Rhonda, we're actually saying the same thing. Those are styles of chiropractic. So that would be like a specialty, which is the point, right? So we want to find out what the specialty is. This part where I'm at right now is like generally speaking, right? Massage does muscles, chiropractic does bones, like higher level definitions. Even our clients don't know that. They don't know that muscles move bone, and they don't know that that's not the chiropractor's focus. Now, is there an overlap? Of course, there's an overlap with me moving bones as well, but I don't use high or low impact to move bones. That's not what I'm trained in. But am I moving the bones by addressing the muscles and how they articulate? Absolutely, absolutely. So there's definitely an overlap, but what lane do I pick depends on the specificity of what is plaguing our client with their pain. So again, let's just go back. We get to know anatomy, we get to know how the body functions, and we get to be able to identify when there is a dysfunction and what that dysfunction is to know if we can address it or if there's another modality that would address it better. Okay, so if I move muscles, and I do, manually and movement wise, if I move muscles for a living and muscles move bone, but the bones aren't moving, like they won't even allow themselves to be in another orientation, no matter what I do, then my modality is not the one that's going to move those bones. It needs to be another modality that moves those bones. And maybe that's when chiropractic is needed. The other flip side of the coin, though, is that in hypermobile constitutions where the joints have a lot of laxity to them, the bones are always moving and out of alignment. So some people would say, well, that's why I have to go to a chiropractor, because I'm always out of alignment. Except that a lot of excessive force, whether it's high or low impact on a joint that's lax, is not healthy for the joint because it's not restoring the function. It's moving the bones back into alignment, but it's not preventing the need for that alignment to be restored all the time. It's not restoring integrity in the joint. It's just moving the joint. So that's a little bit of catch-22. I would not recommend that somebody with hypermobility do weekly chiropractic appointments, even when they're out of alignment and their chiropractor gets an adjustment every time. Of course they will, they're out of alignment. But that's not the fix for the problem. That's an intermediary step for the symptom, meaning the bone's out of place. And so when we can explain that, and first we have to understand it, and then when we can explain it, it might lead our client towards strength training, right? Or any type of isometric where they're getting intrinsic strengthening in their body that is not provided in chiropractic, which is not, again, throwing chiropractic under the bus. It's also not provided in massage, right? So I would be throwing myself under the bus if you think I'm throwing anyone under the bus. So we just get to know what the function is of the body, how it's designed anatomically, and what it needs. And is that need in our lane or in a different lane? And we get to know the other modalities to be able to know what those lanes are. I would say the same thing for acupuncture, right? Acupuncture can be amazing for pain relief. Like it can really be amazing for pain relief. And if you've studied acupuncture, great. If you've studied 5-element theory, awesome. If you've studied Eastern anatomy, awesome. But a lot of us didn't get that training, right? A lot of us didn't. I studied Schatz and Eastern anatomy and 5-element theory, and I went back to school for all of that as well. I am not an acupuncturist, but I know that there's this whole other world of anatomy that's Eastern anatomy that's just as poignant, I guess, in the body as Western anatomy. And so that's why I put it in our coursework. Our first level Inspired Beyond Anatomy has both for a reason. Classic, traditional, pure acupuncture is an energy modality. It works on the meridians in the body, Eastern anatomy. When we hear that acupuncturists do, muscle releases, that's not actually even true. Because where acupuncture needles go in the body are in what's called subos, where it's at the very top layer of skin. They don't even penetrate the 4 layers of skin, because a subo is an energy center, an energy point on a meridian. That's where the needle for acupuncture goes. They don't go through the skin, so how could they be needling a muscle? Now, that doesn't mean that an acupuncturist doesn't have, again, a specialty where they do dry needling, or they do add needles into muscles, but that's not acupuncture. That's a different specialty. That's a different approach. So we don't want our clients to misunderstand that dry needling and acupuncture are the same. We want to empower them in knowing, why was acupuncture the modality that worked? Because actually you have muscle tension, but you have an energy imbalance, which is more about lifestyle than it is about exercise. Right? Folks who are over exercising and undersleeping, not eating well, and also navigating a crisis in life, they would probably get a lot of relief from acupuncture. They'd probably also feel good after massage or yoga too, but that wouldn't solve it. Right? So we get to navigate with them. This is a better choice for you. You'll feel good after an hour's yoga class until you go home. But what we really need is to balance your energy centers in your body so that all of your Western anatomy feels better. Right? And so that would be a better way of serving them, by explaining it to them. You don't have to be a scholar in acupuncture or chiropractic or any other modality, but just enough to know the difference so that they know what they're choosing. I would say the same thing for physical therapy. And part of my career success path is because of physical therapies, a particular physical therapist. No one's being thrown under the bus here. And physical therapists, by traditional training, are designed to look at one area. And back in the day, they actually weren't even allowed legally to work outside of that area because they were very script driven by doctors. Physicians had to write a script to say where the physical therapist was allowed to work, and the physical therapist wasn't allowed to work outside that script. Luckily, that's changed a little bit. So some physical therapists who also have specialties, even manual practice therapies, which is not part of their traditional training, they go on for extra training for that. Luckily, they're now allowed to work independently so that they can follow the body's referral patterns, which we know exists, right? When you know about how the body's designed and you know about functional anatomy, you know that there's referral patterns, which really handcuffed physical therapists for a long time. That said, when we're rehabbing from like a knee replacement or a hip replacement, for example, I don't really want you squirreling, right? I want my physical therapist to just focus on getting me back range in that joint that's now has hardware in it and needs to be, integrated into the rest of my body and mechanics. So there's a lot of beauty in physical therapists focusing on just one area. But if we know that 80% of the pain in the body, actually like closer to 90, between 80 and 90% of the pain in the body is referred from somewhere else, it would make it really difficult for a physical therapist to fully vet that because it's just not how they're trained. And in a lot of cases, if they're still working under doctor scripts, they're not even allowed. So we would know then that that isn't physical. That's why they're physical therapy. Oh, the doctor sent me to physical therapy. I went for 6 weeks. It didn't do anything. Doesn't mean that physical therapy isn't effective. It means that it wasn't effective for that type of pain. So we get to like, again, quell the arrogance and be like, oh, physical therapist didn't know anything. That's not true. It's just not the right modality. And so we get to explain that to our client and let them know that they get to be trusting again of the practitioners that they've seen instead of angry about the practitioners who didn't solve the problem. It might not have been their lane. And they might have needed 2 lanes, right? To fully resolve any human trauma, physical or otherwise, there might be a few lanes to go through, which is again, why they might be in your lane for a while. And then it might be time to pass the baton to another modality, another practitioner. And if you're fully interested, if you're vested in, have a vested interest in them getting full results, you won't keep them coming back for monthly maintenance. You'll send them somewhere else where the next lane can actually get them to the finish line. Okay, I'd also add just a couple other places too that are really common these days. There's an inordinate amount of gut health conversation out there in the world, which I'm absolutely happy about. It was not something that was openly talked about when I was in college, when I was in school. Microbiome is kind of a newer topic, if you will. The last 10-ish years is when we've really been actively talking about it. And there is no microbiomologist, right? There's a cardiologist and an endocrinologist and a neurologist, but there's no microbiomologist right now. So Western medicine's really spinning out right now because they have a lot of science and research that backs it up, but they don't have a silo for that. And Western medicine's very siloed, right? And that's thankfully because they dive deep in their own specialty. And I'm certified in gut health, and I can tell you that based on the anatomy, again, you get to know your anatomy to understand what dysfunction is, to be able to refer to the right place. The amount of anatomy that is in the torso and related to gut health is pretty vast. And so any gut health discrepancies can start to seem like low back and hip pain. And so oftentimes we're like going back and forth between massage and yoga and chiropractic and acupuncture. Maybe that's it. We're doing the thing, we're doing the rounds. And really what's happening is that they have a tremendous gut imbalance that is actually affecting the connective tissue and a lot of the mesentery and, things that hold a lot of tension in the gut. And that is actually why we can't get relief for them. So again, we don't want to go off and diagnose like, oh, you need a chiropractic adjustment and you need a gut health specialist and you need this and you need that. We don't be flippant about it, but just understand the modalities enough to be able to offer another idea to a client. And that is how I offer it. I never say you need or you should try. I say, what's coming to mind for me is there's this other modality that does this, and then listen to their intuition. Their intuition will either nod with you, lean in, or they'll like almost start shaking like, no, that's not it. And so great. Okay, good. Because remember, they chose you for a reason. So even if your modality in your lane is not the one for them, they know that you have the answer for them. So just bring it up in conversation and see what their instincts tell them. And then you can divulge even further. And then, of course, the final answer is you get to have a practitioner in that specialty to refer to. Don't tell them, good luck, go find yourself a good chiropractor. That's not how that works, right? Go find yourself an upper cervical specialist. A who? How do I even find that? Right, we get to explain that. We get to explain specialties, including our own, by the way. So be a specialist, be generous about your willingness to explain all of it, and then learn about the other specialties and, higher level modalities and then specialties as you go so that you can refer to the right person, okay? So that's a brief overview of our Partnering for a Pain-Free World. It's one of my favorite topics. It seems to open up a lot more like deep diving, right? Like practitioners are like, oh my goodness, I need to go back and learn my anatomy. And you all know your anatomy, but there's always opportunity to learn more. So that's all I got for today on my direct share. Thank you for your patience while I pour into you. And now for the rest of the time that we have together, I would love to open up the airwaves and see if there's any questions that I can support you with. You guys can use the chat if you're not able to come on mic or come off mic and come off mute and on camera. You can always use the chat and type in a question. I'm happy to answer them, or just come off mic, come off mute, geez, and ask your question. And of course, if you're watching on the replay, please type your questions into the comments. I will always answer them directly. Any questions that are brewing for today? Either and also either on this topic that we talked about today, or it can literally be any topic, as long as it's in our industry speak. I'm here to support you in that way. So if you have any questions on any anatomy or functional anatomy or client work, I'm here for it. Any questions? Anybody? Danielle?
I have a question.
Right.
You said that, it's a good idea to go try out the other modalities, and then hopefully you find someone that, you feel comfortable referring clients out to. I'm just curious about, like, can you go to 100 chiropractors to find the one in your own body? Like I've done chiropractic work once and I really was not a big fan. It didn't settle well in my body and what was going on. And so I don't know if I'd feel comfortable going to explore many different chiropractors to find someone that I could refer out to.
Yeah,
I wonder if you have any idea on that.
Yeah, I totally get that. So when we're in our own crisis and we're in the care of someone who's not the modality for us, in that it can really sort of sour our taste buds for sure. And you also get to trust that, not all practitioners are ones that you want in your network. So I don't know which one it was for you, but certainly it's one of either, one of both. What I'm suggesting is that when you're perfectly healthy, but that yeah, I'm human, I'm on my perfection scale, I'm a 9 out of 10. There's always something we could tweak here or there. If you're feeling good and you're feeling able and open-minded and curious, that's when I go exploring. I don't go exploring because did they fix my crisis? And then I'm always indebted to them energetically. That's not the kind of vetting that I recommend as a professional. When we have our professional hat on, for lack of a better term, it's like we're interviewing them. You're going to check it out. I'm curious about your modality. I've never heard about it before. And somebody recommended you, and I'm a practitioner, and I really just am here for some self-care and to see what you do and be open in that way. Don't put anyone under the spot. Again, interviewing was sort of just a way to frame that for us, but don't be I'm here to interview you. But just go try it out in a curious way when you know that you're feeling present enough to be able to absorb what they have to offer. And if it happens to be a modality that really wouldn't be ideal for you at the moment, you can also just go schedule an appointment with them and pay them for the hour and then just chat with them, which I've also done. Right? If it's something that I just didn't need in my body, but I really wanted to get to know that practitioner in the specialty, I'll just schedule I'm a regular client and just pay for it. Did that answer it for you?
Using some of your other, networks and asking around, hey, is there someone that you guys all would recommend? Or Totally.
Yeah. In fact, I had an integrated wellness clinic, which I think Danielle, and that was the intention. This partnering for a pain-free world is literally how I wanted to build my, my masterpiece clinic. And the way we found practitioners was sometimes I would just go get an appointment with them and see if, I technically was interviewing like a little more stringently because, like, was it a fit for the clinic and et cetera. But just about the modality, sometimes I didn't know. And I'd have a practitioner in the clinic and I'd say, who do you know who? Or when you had your ankle injury in college, what did you do for that? Oh, I went to this person, I went to that modality, I did this, I did that. Which one of those worked? And then are they still in town? And when I moved to New York, same thing. Who do you know who? So yeah, absolutely. Tap into the practitioners that you already trust to be discerning, and then come together. That's part of partnering. Like, especially in a smaller city, you can really create a community where people in that community know they're going to get handled well, because the reputation is that we will all integrate ourselves into the right order, right? Which, again, that's the premise of what the clinic was about. Let's see. Rhonda says, look them up online and see what they say about who they are and what they do. Yeah, you could absolutely, look at reviews and things like that. Although, keep reviews in mind. I don't know that there's any Google reviews even for me online, just because the way my business is listed, it's probably listed as virtual or something, just because I'm in 3 different cities. Where would you get the review from? So not everybody's tech savvy. Not everybody has their website set up. I know some of the most amazing specialists in the city that I'm currently in do not have a website. Doesn't mean that they're not good. It's a little creepy when you're like, well, everybody has a website. Why don't you have a website? We talk about that in Mastery. Like, you have to have an online presence. Doesn't mean they don't have an online presence. They just might not have a very, verbose website. At the moment, my website for my clients even isn't as active as it is for practitioners. Just I'm focused on the work that I'm doing and less about building a website. So yes, absolutely look them up. And also word of mouth is a great place. And then put those 2 together, go try them out and see how you feel. See how you feel. Do they answer your questions? Here's the other thing. There's a about answering your questions. There's a practitioner that I know that's on the far west side who does a specialty. And doesn't matter what it is, but they do a specialty, and the specialty is amazing. Like, I know absolutely what it does, and I know how it supports my lane. It's not that they have to have it, but it's quicker path if they go there and then come back to me. And that particular practitioner, every person that I've sent to them has come back and said, boy, are they gruff. That person can learn a little bedside manners. Why are they so freaking rude? Or they, those, lots of feedback, not just one person who kind of had a personality conflict, but lots and lots of feedback. And the last person I sent there, I told them, this is the feedback that I typically get. If that feels like that would be okay for you, I know that the specialty, the modality is, here are the benefits, here are the things that modality does. And that client came back and said, I really appreciate you giving me a heads up, because if you hadn't, I would have walked out. But even though you told me, and that practitioner is great, I don't need to go back. And I was like, cool, get it. So they can be amazing, but if they aren't someone you would want to work on you, and you can't even sort of explain it away, then maybe they're not your practitioner, even in your network, even if they're a specialist. So you got to really vibe with someone, because your clients know, like, and trust you. So they expect that you're going to send them somewhere in good care, right? They expect that you're going to send them somewhere that's equivalent. It doesn't mean it has to be exact. They don't have to work exactly the way you do, or even be on the same side of town that you do. But there's got to be some kind of, your clients got to get it when you send them there. If you're the person, I'm the person who explains a lot and, always opens up my anatomy book so that they can feel connected to what we're working on. And then you send them to someone who doesn't even answer a question. That's too far of a leap. That's why that didn't work. Not that they weren't talented, but that's not what my clients are comfortable with, or what they've grown to expect. They expect to be in connection with the person that's, treating them. Got a little bit more than you asked for, Danielle, but did that answer your question? Yeah, good. Okay, great. Any other questions? Anything else coming up for you guys today? I like that you're piecing together, how do I build my network? Who do I refer to? Any other questions that I can support you with today? Let me just check the chat again. No, we're good. Okay. If there's no questions, that's okay. Always bring your questions if you have them. If you think of them later, you can always either send me a direct note, which I know a lot of you do, or leave a comment in the video, in the comment section below the video if you're watching on YouTube on a replay for sure, so I can get your questions answered.
I might have one question.
Hey, good. I love it. Q&A.
Yeah. So this has been rolling around in my head, and this goes back a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, do we stretch before before running or cycling, or after, or not at all? So I've got a it's not even a workshop. It's just like a bike club is coming in, and I'm going to give them a couple movements, poses to do before their ride and after their ride. And as I was going back through my notes from that, it was specifically the psoas and hip flexion, right? So I'm going to assume that a lot of them were sitting before they ride, and engaging. I said engage the lever system before the workout. So I'm trying to be real succinct with them, like they want to get on their bikes and they want to ride, so they need a couple quick things to do that. So what I was thinking was lengthening the psoas in like a low lunge, like nothing that they would need a yoga mat for. They can do it on, in a parking lot or at their house, or you get the gist, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm in a low lunge and, well, shoot, no, I can't lengthen one and contract the other.
Hmm?
I was thinking like a low lunge to lengthen the psoas from sitting, and then engaging the glute. I think I might have to go in and look at my muscles around a lunge before I try to troubleshoot this.
You want to be quizzed right now?
I don't know, because I'm already like kind of questioning everything.
Okay.
Let me ponder it. Let me do it. Yeah. Let me do a little research before, and I can put it in the student lounge.
Sure, for sure.
Why don't I do that?
Absolutely. We can also chat in the student lounge afterward.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, Lori. So I know you're gonna you want a minute to gather all your pieces and love it. And I'm here to finish the conversation with you when you're ready for that.
Yeah.
Think about the other areas of the body as well. Think about cycling for me. Like, yes, of course, you get to assume everyone sits because we all just sit.
Right.
I get that. And cycling is also, while their hip joints are in motion, their upper body is in a static hold. And
it's primarily what I've seen. They're not there's like no curves, right?
No curves.
They're pretty much in flexion.
Yep, they're in spine flexion. And what are their shoulders doing?
They are typically medially rotated.
And what else?
And they're in flexion. Let's see, head of the shoulder flexion.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
So those muscles are in a long hold position, even while they're cycling. Forget about even what they came into the training, into the cycling with.
Right.
So I love what you said, like they come into cycling with this, and then your after gets to address what were they doing while they were cycling.
Right. I was thinking about that too. Yep.
That's awesome. So put that together and then post it, and let's see what you come up with for your before and after.
Yeah. Thank you for, that's perfect. I was thinking along all those lines. I wasn't quite ready to share it, I don't think.
So you're closer than you think, though, and
I am close. I'm totally closer than I think. Yeah. So thank you. I think I only needed support. Like, you're on the right track, Laura.
You're on the right track. And I love that you're doing a specialty class for cyclists. Like, I know that I just love that community with you. I love it.
Yeah. It'll be good.
Beautiful. When is the class?
It's not even a class, it's before. They have a monthly meeting.
Uh-huh.
So they're actually having it at my studio just to bounce around. I know it'll be fun. And I just wanted to give them a couple quick little things
Okay.
to do before and then pre-ride and post-ride. Like they don't need yoga mat. We're not doing any of that stuff. So.
All right. So as you put together your joint actions,
Mhm.
sure that you're reversing joint actions and then engaging in the reversal. So that's the lever system.
Mhm.
And then if there's anything that you can do where you could be combining them, different joints at the same time, that's how you create efficiency for them.
I can do that.
Of course you can.
Mhm. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Now I'm on a more succinct track.
Love it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah. Is that good for that?
Yeah, that's good for that.
Any other questions, my love?
Out of me, no.
Nothing? Okay, awesome.
No.
Danielle logged off, which is great. Rhonda, are you still with us? Do you have any questions? Laura's here too. Hey, Laura. Okay, love it. Any questions, my loves? Are we wrapping up for today? Either way is good for me. All right, I'm gonna assume we're gonna be wrapping up and no questions now. Rhonda says, okay, great, awesome. And Laura's good too. Perfect, good. I'm glad you guys are full and you feel like you got what you needed. Love it. I love this conversation. Let me know, by the way, who your practitioners are and what city that you're in, so that we can all start developing a community. In fact, when your clients start traveling, they'll start asking you, do you know anybody in Boise, Idaho? Do you know anybody in Houston, Texas? They'll start asking you in cities that you don't live in if you know anybody. So we can all share our community and our amazing practitioners. I have a whole gaggle of them from across the globe, even practitioners I haven't worked with yet. So share them with us if you have them. Everybody gets to be propped up and supported. The bigger our network is, the more people we get to serve. So I'm all for that. All right. Awesome, Lori. What's that? What did you just post in there, Laura? Oh, is that the student lounge? Oh, yes. Okay, great. Yeah, share them. Thanks for reminding me, Lori. We have a place to continue our conversation afterward, which is our student lounge. It's a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group. So, and everybody that's in there is vetted. We're all like-minded. So yeah, please post your practitioners in the student lounge. That would be amazing. My preference is that Rhonda says, I'm in Northwest Philly, PA. I do bodywork and kinesiotaping. Fantastic. Yeah, so my preference is that we post practitioners and the specialties, not other training. You know, let's just keep it cool in there. And as long as we're speaking bodywork in the student lounge, we're good. So yeah, if you are not yet joining us in the student lounge, please do that. I'll put the link. I'll put the link in the video description beneath this video if you guys aren't already in there. All right, my loves, continue to do amazing work in the world. Thank you so much for being here. Your clients are super lucky to have you as you continue to advance yourself as your own specialist. I love it. I love it for them. I love it for you. And I'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye for now.